Want to know the latest in soccer? Then listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast. From MLS, the World Cup, and the Premier League, we've got you covered. The latest updates, the hottest matches, and news on the league's top players. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast.
David Beckham scores the goal to take England all the way to the World Cup finals.
Listen now.
GSMC Soccer Podcast. Hey, welcome into the show. I'm your host, Lucas Moore. Give us a follow on Twitter at GSMC_soccer. Head your way to Facebook. Like us there as well. Big day in the world of soccer. Not really. Nothing going on. But big day in comparison to, by the way, also on the GSMC Podcast Network, the GSMC Baseball Podcast, where I'm talking about the future of the World Series and if players are going to get thrown at. And I thought it was a great show, so I really recommend you check it out. But it's not as big as what's going on in the world of soccer right now, because it is actually flying in terms of international club soccer. There's some good international soccer buzz because of the European competitions upcoming. World Cup qualifying is starting to roll in. And soccer always hits this nice 3-year bam, 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 where it does have some serious momentum right in the World Cup. And then it kind of has that World Cup post-lull where everybody's just football, soccer. It's all on all the time. A lot of big matches, a lot of big news. And then the World Cup happens. It's exciting. It's elating. And then there's always a dip, especially here in the United States, where there's a lot of different sports capturing your attention. But right now, this is the time when soccer is really going to roll. You've got a really good Serie A race going on. Bundesliga looks fun. Premier League's got an invincible team nearly at the top in Liverpool. We'll see if they can do it. Champions League could have a repeat champion. It's really interesting. And that'll all roll into a Euro competition, which is very popular around the world. You're going to see some of the best players in a serious international cup. And then in the fall, you've got World Cup qualifying. And that gets you juiced and excited for the World Cup. And it just keeps on rolling all the way to 2022. Be different a little with the Winter World Cup, but it is exciting times in the soccer world. Big news came down today for Hertha Berlin and Jurgen Klinsmann in the Bundesliga. We're going to start with the Bundesliga today, little Serie A later, little Real Madrid, Barcelona. Messi, Ronaldo, could it work together? We'll talk about that a little later in the show. And also the Major League Soccer uniform release. A lot of the same looks, but I'll let you know some of my favorites and some of my least favorites from the world of MLS. But Jurgen Klinsmann, 76 days in charge of Hertha Berlin. He was promoted and placed in charge of Hertha Berlin to get him out of the relegation zone. He did that. You thought he was going to stick around for a while. In 76 days, he not only steps down and back to his role as front office, he said he did not have the full support of the organization structure of Hertha Berlin, which is really an interesting comment from Jurgen Klinsmann. And this move from Jurgen tells me he thinks he can manage somewhere else. He thinks that managing somewhere else is realistic. He thinks that managing somewhere else is certainly on the table for him. So where could Jurgen go? Potentially a bigger job in another league? A bigger Bundesliga job? Because you don't make a move like this, only manage 76 days, say you don't have the proper support, have some decent results, be getting fairly good press for it, unless you think that managing somewhere else is in the cards. Because if this was your last shot, you knew, oh boy, if I screw up this Hertha Berlin thing, then I'm not going to be a manager anywhere else. Right? If you think that this was your last job, I have to do well here at Berlin, and then I can get back into the ranks. I guess Jurgen Klinsmann has that much clout, or he thinks he has that much clout. Because he'll walk away from it 76 days after. The question I'm asking, though, today is, would you hire him? I think 100% yes. He's had so much success in so many different places. And the biggest failure of his career, the United States, in terms of getting fired there, that's really easy to spin into a success story. Because after he left, yes, he was disastrous in qualifying right before he left, but it felt like he had lost it in terms of the locker room, in terms of the trust of management before those disastrous results. But the U.S. didn't qualify for the World Cup without him. And he can say, hey, couple things go another way. If Wondolowski doesn't shank one over the bar, maybe we beat Belgium, maybe we're in the quarterfinals, and who knows what happens in the 2014 World Cup. Hey, didn't I make it out of the group of death? Didn't we nearly beat Portugal if Ronaldo hadn't made a great play? Finally beat Ghana, competitive against Germany. Belgium, one of the teams that is up and rising in international soccer. Played well with them. He can spin that a certain way. But he developed the youth program in Germany, mentored the manager of the German team that ended up winning the 2014 World Cup. He's had some success at the club level. And nothing's been major success, but he hasn't been a disaster, truly abject disaster anywhere else. So I think he thinks he has an opportunity to coach elsewhere, thinks he has enough clout, and he isn't going to go ruin his reputation by getting relegated next season with Hertha Berlin, since they aren't in line with his vision. And he has the power to do that. And he's definitely built up the clout to do that. Interesting move, though, from Jurgen Klinsmann to only stay in that job for 76 days. Picked up 3 wins, 4 draws, 3 losses. Solid, right? Dragged Hertha Berlin, 6 points clear of the relegation zone. We'll see what happens to them down the stretch after losing their manager, losing another one. So that's 3 managers, 1 season for Hertha Berlin, who really haven't been competitive in the Bundesliga for a very long time and have really been an also-ran about every single year in the German first division. But Jurgen, I don't think that he was a fit anymore with the United States. Wish he would have played out that cycle, see how it worked out. But I thought his vision for what U.S. soccer could be was an interesting one. And I love that he had a plan and a way of doing things, and he stuck to it. Like any good German. But the plan might not have been the best plan. Or it wasn't executed properly, or he didn't have the support from the United States leadership and the United States soccer community, who wanted him to use more MLS players, and it just was an untenable relationship. Interesting to see where Jurgen Klinsmann goes moving forward for sure. One of his old teams he used to manage, FC Bayern, they played the biggest Bundesliga match of the year on Sunday. It ended in a 0-0 draw, but it was thrilling. We talk about Bayern Leipzig on the other side of the break. You're listening to the GSMC Soccer Podcast.
Are you looking to get your college football fix? Looking to get the latest news on your favorite school's team? The GSMC College Football Podcast is your ticket to all things college football. Join us as we talk college football from the national championship, the college rivalries, the bowl game, to the Heisman Trophy. To which conference is the best? We've got you covered for the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, the Pac-12, ACC, and everything in between. Download the GSMC College Football Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
GSMC Soccer Podcast. Big welcome back into the show. What a fun 0-0 draw. And this weekend made me miss the old days of not getting any notifications. Right? I mean, I never really lived in the era. I'm pretty young. The era of sports where you wanted to watch something, but you knew you couldn't because of another obligation, because of another job, because of work, because of something. You knew you couldn't watch it. And yet you knew as long as you were in a place where not everybody else was watching the game, that you could get away with not watching it, go home, and pretend like you're watching it live. Those days ended with Twitter. Those days ended with apps that send the score right to your phone as it happened, which I love, are really helpful, really exciting. But it's kind of taken away that really great thing of recording a sporting event and then rewatching it without knowing the result. Had that opportunity this weekend with Bayern Leipzig. Watched the first half before I had an obligation. Second half, watched after said obligation. Didn't see a goal, yet was super entertained. Frustrated that neither team could score. Frustrated that the defenses played so well because I wanted this to be a 3-2 thrilling back and forth match, but still, a lot of fun, a lot of goal scoring opportunities. It felt like the moment was almost a little too big for Leipzig because the game was certainly there for the taking. They had the better of the chances, although they were fewer. They had some layups. Timo Werner had a layup. And Bayern, some tough chances, some chances they normally finish, but the game never really opened up for them. Leipzig did a good job of sitting back, understanding their role. I thought it was very smart by them. They know they don't have as much talent player to player as Bayern Munich. And so they absorbed, they waited for good opportunities, and they're a good attacking team, so they came. But when they came for RB Leipzig, it was wide. Timo Werner, I don't even know where that miss came from. They missed their opportunities. They took bad touches in crucial areas. And Bayern, all in all, played a really good defensive match, and Manuel Neuer was fantastic as usual. But Leipzig had their opportunities to win this game 2-0. And to me, if you're going to send momentum one way or the other with this draw, which when we talked about this game on the show last week, I talked more about what would happen if each team won the match. I didn't really talk about what would a 0-0 draw, because you don't even want to put that in the universe, what that would look like. But to me, after watching it, although you say, well, Leipzig was on the road, I mean, you said it yourself, Lucas, on the podcast, they weren't supposed to win this game at all. Bayern was certainly the favorite at home, in form. Leipzig's been out of form, had not won in 3 straight matches, 2 losses and a draw. But then you watch it, and it feels like Leipzig missed an opportunity to go 2 points clear of the 7-time defending champion. They still look like a team that's struggling in the final third, and Timo Werner has hit a cold streak with Leipzig, maybe because of his pending transfer this summer. And it feels like a situation where I'm more confident in Bayern Munich down the stretch than I am RB Leipzig. Because the Bundesliga comes down to, it's not if you can beat Bayern. People beat Bayern on occasion, right? That happens. It's about whether you can beat the 6th team in the table, the 7th team in the table, consistently, not lose points. Because when Bayern is rolling, which they are rolling right now, a draw to Leipzig after they put up 4 goals, 5 goals, 4 goals, 5 goals, it's just not going to throw them off this type of trend they're on. Maybe they get distracted by the Champions League. But it just feels like they're going to keep rolling. When Bayern's rolling, the 6th place team, the 7th place team, they're just outmatched in too many places. Right? You have to be a Leverkusen, you have to be a Dortmund, you have to be a Schalke, although Schalke was barely competitive. Leipzig, occasionally Borussia Mönchengladbach. This year is one of those years. You have to be one of those teams to beat Bayern, to get Bayern. Otherwise, it's just, you're drawing dead, and it would be a real shocker. While Leipzig, on the other hand, if they're not rolling, they can get beat by about anybody on the table. And that's what I think will decide the Bundesliga race down the stretch. I just think Bayern's going to consistently win more. Leipzig's going to have a few more disappointing results. And they might have had some room for error, maybe, if they had found a way to win that match against Bayern Munich. You come away with a 1-0 victory. You come away with a 2-0 victory. You're 2 points clear. You feel really good. Maybe you even knock Bayern off their momentum. They'll panic a little bit. And you feel really good. Now, Bayern would still be the favorite by the numbers, but I wouldn't be sitting here on this show saying that Bayern's going to win their 8th straight German title. I'm still saying that. Although a win from Bayern would have sealed the deal, it'd have been adios Leipzig, it'd have been adios rest of the Bundesliga, because there'd been no catching Bayern if they were 4 points clear of 2nd place. At this point in the season, with this type of momentum, with the way Dortmund drops a match to Leverkusen 4-3, really thrilling one, with the way Leipzig's been dropping matches, it just becomes a situation where you just don't see it happening. And the Bundesliga, it's weird. They have this constant defending champion in Bayern Munich, yet they're one of the more balanced leagues in the world. To where I'm more confident about their 17th, 16th team pulling an upset against the 2nd or 3rd best team in the league than certainly you are in the Premier League, certainly you are in La Liga, definitely for Serie A. Because look, in La Liga, it's Atletico Madrid, who's by far and away better than the teams swimming at the bottom of La Liga. While Bundesliga has less top tier teams, where Bayern Munich's the only one realistically competing for Champions League every year. Dortmund can make an argument, sure. But it's really Bayern Munich and then the rest of the league. But the rest of the league is so balanced that this kind of helps Bayern win titles every year, because this exact situation happens, where Leipzig's got to play a solid 11th place team that Bayern is so significantly better than that they can just get more consistent results throughout the rest of the schedule. Because Bayern's been getting beat by Dortmund for years. Doesn't mean Dortmund wins the league. While that may be the case in other leagues, because the gap's just too wide. But we'll see. Leipzig holds on. They're still somewhat in the race. 1 point back. Keeping a draw there definitely kept them in the race, but slotting any of those goals and walking out of that arena with a win, you'd really be looking at a potential Leipzig championship. It becomes 50-50. It becomes every match is going to be possibly the deciding one. Now, we're still in that situation, but if you're Leipzig, you need things to go real right. You need a lot of things to break your way. You need some teams to pull some upsets. You need Bayern to get cold. You need them to focus on the Champions League a little more. But Leipzig's got to focus on the Champions League themselves, and they have nowhere near the depth. They don't have Philip Coutinho coming off the bench the way FC Bayern does. Interesting times in the Bundesliga. Really exciting stuff to talk about. On the other side, Serie A, Italy, has gotten really competitive, scary competitive. Is Ronaldo and Juventus, are they vulnerable? We'll talk about that on the other side of the break. You're listening to the GSMC Soccer Podcast.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
GSMC Soccer Podcast. Been having a lot of FIFA fun recently. We've talked about it on the show. We've talked about the FIFA thing I'm going through. JT Rose, currently managing England in the World Cup in 2022. Just won the FA Cup with Manchester United, made the move from Ajax Amsterdam. Fits the storyline. Excited about it. Excited about the potential opportunity for JT Rose to win Premier Leagues and stuff. But it'll be awfully competitive. But been having some FIFA fun. And you don't really see crazy league races like the table we see now in Serie A outside of the video game FIFA. I mean, this is absolutely insane what is starting to happen in Italy right now. So I said on this show a few weeks ago, and Juventus has won the last 6, 7, 8 titles. Not even sure of the exact number. But Juventus has been legitimately competitive. Really, really good. And the top of this league for years. And it looked like they were headed that way. And they had arguably the best player in the world still in Cristiano Ronaldo managing stuff at the top of that league. And you thought they were going to run away with this thing. Yeah, teams are going to hang around. Yes, you like Lazio. Yes, you like Inter Milan. Yes, Atalanta is interesting this year. And Roma, they've been interesting in the past. So maybe they'll hang around. But I did not see this coming. Especially with AC Milan down this year, one of the teams that's usually involved in Serie A. Right now, Juventus has fallen to second place in Italy. Inter Milan has made it their way all the way back, tied at 54 points at the top of the league with Juventus. Lazio 1 point back at 53. And check this out. Atalanta, yes, they're at 42 points, but they have a 9 better goal differential, 9, than Juventus right now. Meaning Juventus is the 4th best team in Serie A according to goal differential, which is a statistic that can lie to you, but it's an important one. And with Cristiano Ronaldo on their front line, Juventus is 4th in goals scored in Serie A. They are behind Lazio, Atalanta, and Inter Milan at 44. And Roma's only 2 back with 42. If Roma hadn't given up 30 goals on the year, they might be near Juventus at the top of that table. And that's just one of it's rough for Juventus right now. They're struggling around Cristiano Ronaldo. Ronaldo is still scoring goals, right? He had scored in 10 straight Serie A matches. He's absolutely flying. He's playing really good soccer. So it's not Ronaldo to blame. And he might still carry them to a championship. In fact, he's the only reason they're actually at all involved in this title race right now. And it still might work out that Cristiano Ronaldo carries this team, carries Juventus to the top of Serie A. But I'm nervous right now. Way, way more nervous if I'm a Juventus fan than I've ever been over the past few seasons. Because Lazio is legitimate. They've got 53 goals on the year. Atalanta might end up beating you when you play them later this year because they can score so many goals. And Inter Milan is all around solid. Juventus is going to have to win some big games down the stretch. They've got AC Milan, who has come into form recently. 4 wins out of the last 5, and the other one a draw. Right? That's this Thursday. That's in their cup. And you just move through the schedule for Juventus, and there's just a real opportunity that they get beat. Big one against Inter Milan at the start of March. Right? They play Genoa, Lecce. They should probably get wins there, but they have to play AC Milan in the league, still Atalanta in the league, and they finished with Lazio. So they're going to have to win matches, big matches down the stretch, if they want to be the champion of Serie A. And that's a situation, that's a moment or a scenario that really has not come into the heads of Juventus fans for a long, long time. And adding Cristiano Ronaldo, you thought it would be absolutely absurd for that thought to enter your head. But they've done such a poor job around Ronaldo that it's becoming really difficult to have confidence in this team moving forward. You look at the goal differential, it doesn't lie. You know, God forbid Ronaldo goes down with any sort of injury, even a muscle pull that puts him out for 2 matches. I mean, you might lose twice. That might be the end of it all. Really, really tenuous ground for Juventus right now. 4th in goal differential in Serie A. And Lazio and Inter Milan have a lot of talented players. And it's a tough schedule still for Juventus moving forward. On the other side of the break, Real Madrid and Barcelona both hang on for wins in the league, meaning we're still at the same place in La Liga. Yet every week I seem to say the standings are in the same place for La Liga, and Barcelona ends up in a worse spot in my eyes. They've got a limited budget, they've made some bad moves, and an injury to one of their best players makes it real nerve-wracking if you're a Barcelona fan moving forward. We'll talk about that situation at the top of La Liga on the other side of the break. You're listening to the GSMC Soccer Podcast.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
GSMC Soccer Podcast. I'm your host, Lucas Moore. Big welcome in. Follow us on Twitter at GSMC_soccer. Like us on Facebook, GSMC Soccer. Just talked about Juventus at the top of Serie A and how that potential title run is coming to an end. Boy, wouldn't it be interesting if Bayern Munich and Juventus did not win a title in their respective league this year. It would be the first time it's happened since the beginning of the decade, which would be absolutely insane. Real Madrid and Barcelona, they're often the teams at the top of the Liga, and they still are. And it really hasn't changed the top of the Spanish Primera Division. Right? The table still sits Real Madrid at the top, Barcelona in second, and Real Madrid 3 points clear of Barcelona. There was a point 4 weeks ago when these teams were tied, but then immediately following that, it's been a 3-point lead for Real Madrid. Now, still some really big matches to go, but Real Madrid has been the better team in terms of goal differential. They only have one loss. Barcelona's lost 4 times on the season. But the thing about Barcelona is they just lost another player. They lost Luis Suarez, and they couldn't afford to buy another forward-facing player, a guy to help Messi in the attack, because you're getting some stories of mismanaged transfers, and Messi has 40% of their wage budget right now. 40% of the salary going to Lionel Messi. And they only have $12 million to play with now after they got a transfer exception to find a replacement for Dembele after he goes down. So Suarez down, Dembele down, Messi's getting older. You fire your manager who's at the top of the Liga. You try to bring in this guy to establish culture. He doesn't work out as well. You catch flack from social media. Then you go out and blame all the players, saying they're the ones that wanted the last manager fired, and half of them said they didn't want him fired. And it's just a complete mess at the top from Barcelona. It would not be universal soccer justice for Barcelona to win La Liga this year. It would only be justice for how good Messi is. Right? It would just be an accomplishment of Messi himself. But we've seen Messi in a lot of these types of situations. A lot of, no pun intended, Messi situations, right? Where the manager doesn't get along with the players think Messi might have too much power, or leadership thinks Messi has too much power, and everybody just keeps feeding him the ball too much. He kind of ruins the rhythm of play. Just all these crazy stories about a guy that's super talented and one of the most talented players of all time somehow makes your team worse. Right? And I don't know why he continues to be involved in things like this. Maybe that's just the curse of being Lionel Messi. But Barcelona just in a messy spot, in a bad spot at the top of the Liga. Again, they keep pace with Real Madrid barely after a really embarrassing 4-3 win for Barcelona. Yes, it's a win, but it just doesn't feel like momentum for FC Barcelona. It feels like they've been moving backwards every single week, yet they have it in the standings. And that's credit to Messi, and that's credit to their talent. But talent only takes you so far. Great players only take you so far. You need organization. You need a manager that has the confidence of his players. And you need a good front office, scouting department that can put it all together and not waste all your money. So when you're in a position to buy a forward because you have had injuries, you can find a guy on loan. You can find a guy that fits within your budget. You can have enough budget to make that purchase. And Barcelona has just been sitting in a really bad spot again. And Real Madrid, without Cristiano Ronaldo, looks like the team to beat in La Liga moving forward, coming off a 4-1 win in the league. A lot of Messi, Ronaldo talk in terms of Ronaldo's former team, Real Madrid, Ronaldo's Juventus team in a dogfight right now. But those two stories we just talked about, Juventus struggling, feeling like they need more talent, combined with the story of Barcelona being all out of sorts, and a lot of it because of Messi, at least that's what they're saying, lines up a really interesting possibility for the 2021 season. 2020-2021 season. I'll talk about that possibility on the other side of the break. You're listening to the GSMC Soccer Podcast.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
GSMC Soccer Podcast. I'm your host, Lucas Moore. Really interesting theory comes to mind. After we just combined the two last segments, think about it. Juventus, world power team, struggling at the top of their league with a world star who's aging a little bit, who can't carry a team like he used to, and Cristiano Ronaldo and Juventus. Combine that with a former rival, but they didn't really hate each other, just kind of rivalry for rivalry's sake, who is absolutely unhappy, whose management thinks he's overpaid, who is in a bad situation where they might lose out on their league title. You combine that two stories, and you drop in a rumor from a manager of a random team in Europe. It was an anonymous source. And then a couple of sources who aren't really close to the situation, but they're named, who say that Messi and Ronaldo don't exactly have anything against playing with each other. So now you have a team who is out of sorts, who feels like the relationship is coming to an end. It's been a very long relationship with FC Barcelona and Lionel Messi. And you have Cristiano Ronaldo at a power that has the money to pay Messi what he wants and buy him at the fee that Barcelona will demand, who needs some help, who needs some talent help. And I think we're staring at a real possibility of a 2020-21 campaign of Messi and Ronaldo both at Juventus. That's insane, that possibility. It's a possibility many of us just played out in FIFA, right? Trying to buy Messi and Ronaldo and put them on the same team. And boy, isn't that interesting. Look how fun this looks. The two best players in the world. But they would combine when they're not exactly the best players in the world anymore, but they're still really, really good. But then combining their powers, imagine Ronaldo goes on his hot streak while Messi's a little off. Flip it the other way. They can play off each other. That much talent, experience, and goal scoring. You've got over 1,000 career goals scored on one team would work. Don't kid yourselves. That would work. I would be horrified of Juventus if I were any team in the world. Because those two are more than just goal scorers. It's more than just their athleticism. They are killers. They have that Mamba mentality. They have that next level striking presence where the ball will always go in the back of the net for them. Their touch will always be crisp and clean. And they will be great players for as long as they choose to play. Will they be as athletic? Will they be as consistently dominant? No. But they're going to be good goal scorers and great players. And them being able to work off each other, use each other for rest, carry the team in spells, and not be relied on to do it through a whole 50-game season. Two killers like that, that's dangerous. That's a lot of teams getting beat. That's a lot of teams giving up 4 goals. That's a lot of hat tricks, even at their advanced, quote-unquote, age. I think this would be a great move for Messi. I think it would be a great move for Ronaldo. You turn this famous rivalry into a friendship, into teammates. I mean, I think it improves both their brands. I think it makes Juventus the number one story in soccer, not just... That's a headline that runs on SportsCenter of the United States. Messi and Ronaldo on the same team. If you're Juventus, I mean, this is cash cow type of stuff. You have an opportunity to reach into a very strong American market, which all these teams have an interest in. A lot of Americans buy jerseys, man. And if you can get Americans into buying Juventus jerseys, Messi, Ronaldo, same team, how will they play together? I mean, it's just an incredible storyline. It's an incredible headline. And I think it makes you better, more dangerous, and really capable of winning the Champions League. This could work. This, in my opinion, would work. And it's something I'd love to see. Will Messi do it? Will Barcelona do it? Will Juventus step up and do it? Or they think younger options are better options? A lot of things have to happen. I'm not saying it's likely, but think about it. Makes sense. Because Messi and Ronaldo, they can't keep making headlines being the best player in the world anymore. Because they're both falling off that type of tier. Ronaldo may still be there in some ways. But the headlines are Mo Salah. Mo Salah is worth more than Lionel Messi. right? Real Madrid still very successful without Ronaldo. It just feels like they're falling off. They could fall gracefully out of their prime, still be considered legendary players, and, it was great, and the rivalry's over. Or they could jump to the top of the world headlines again, combine their forces, and do something that's really never been done before in sports. Messi, Ronaldo, same team, one place. I think it would work. I think it'd be a great move for their careers in terms of their legacy. And I think it really puts an interesting aspect and an interesting look on soccer throughout the world. I think it's a move that all soccer fans should be in favor of. On the other side of the break, the MLS uniform release. Major League Soccer. What's my favorite? What's my least favorite? Talk about that on the other side of the break. You're listening to the GSMC Soccer Podcast.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines, they got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
GSMC Soccer Podcast. I'm your host, Lucas Moore. Welcome back into the show. Final segment of the show. And Soccer Champions League. Hey, it's coming up week from today of recording. So that means next Monday we're previewing Champions League matches. Isn't that exciting? Been talking about that since this show started. We'll save all that content for next week. But Major League Soccer with big news. They released their new uniforms. I like a lot of the new looks. Listen, there honestly isn't a uniform here that I hate in terms of the Major League Soccer uniform release. I really don't hate any of these uniforms, which is really good. It's good that there isn't a single uniform that I'm against or I think is super ugly or is a uniform that I would be embarrassed to wear, which there are very few uniforms throughout sports now that are like that. I look back at some of the uniforms in the 90s and 80s. I would never wear a Tampa Bay Buccaneers from the 70s uniform. I think that is the ugliest cream color mascot combination ever. I think it's horrendous. Right? Luckily in sports, all those uniforms have almost faded out because there's so much money in it. I love all the new artists in the modern. And some aren't exactly cool to me, but I like them. I love them. So some jerseys that have really stood out to me, just go ahead and follow along because ESPN did a great job here. They ranked all the uniforms, and you just go through now 26 teams. 26 teams. This league is expanding fast. And they power rank the uniforms. I don't really agree with these rankings at all. But they all look clean. Sporting Kansas City with the stripes on the side looks really good. I love the blue. For Glory, for City on the back, which makes sense because Sporting Kansas City, they've got a lot of momentum right now in terms of a sports town. Minnesota United's got a big target on the chest, which looks interesting, but it just doesn't make me thrilled. I love DC United's colors and uniform, although they're hanging on to those 4 championships when there was about 8 teams in the league. But, that's an argument for another day. Vancouver Whitecaps, solid uniform. I love the light blue on the arm sleeves. Orlando City, that's interesting. With the purple fading in the middle in the state of Florida on the arm. I think it's an interesting look. FC Dallas, horizontal stripes, usually a no for me, but it looks all right. The LAFC all black and gold uniform. Whew. That might be my favorite of the bunch. Atlanta United with the gold, but that's hard to see from a distance. LAFC certainly my favorite uniform when I look through. Portland Timbers really interesting. Again, these are all great uniforms. New York Red Bulls releasing all black. Seattle Sounders, some interesting stripes. But LAFC, I love the logo. I love the stadium. In terms of look, I think they look really good. Inter Miami going with the pink uniform, which I think is an interesting look for Miami. I think it'll work down there. It isn't necessarily my favorite. My least favorite uniform out of all these is honestly Nashville SC. I think they've got another rebrand to go through. They're one of the new expansion teams. It's a solid uniform. Again, this is not a bad uniform whatsoever, and I'd certainly wear it. I wouldn't be against wearing it. But it just feels like they have a couple things to figure out with their logo. I think it's interesting. I think it'll be here for a few years, but I think they're one more rebrand away from really working. The gold looks good from Nashville, but it feels like a color we've seen before, so I don't get too excited for it. In the Chicago Fire uniform, they came out with a logo pretty late, so they really haven't had an opportunity to fit it with the uniform well, so it's pretty generic. But again, it doesn't look bad. I think MLS has got good branding right now, good cities involved, 26 teams, high attendance across the league. I think that attendance maintains. I think there's a lot of excitement. And we will preview the MLS in full on this show on another episode. A lot of fun today. Good stuff to recap from the weekend. FC Bayern Leipzig with a really thrilling 0-0 draw. New uniform releases from Major League Soccer. And Messi and Ronaldo potentially playing with each other. I think it's a realistic circumstance that seriously could happen. And it's one I'm really genuinely excited for. And I hope it does happen. Fun times in the world of soccer. Even more fun because the Champions League will come up. We'll preview it all on the show next week. We'll preview another big weekend in world soccer. It's at its peak. It's rolling into the 2020 Euros, the qualifying rounds, the Olympics. A lot of fun in world soccer at this time and in the time moving forward. We had a lot of fun on the show, on the podcast. Really hope you enjoyed it. Follow us on Twitter at GSMC_soccer. Follow us on Facebook, GSMC Soccer. And check out all the other podcasts on the podcast network that brings you this podcast, the GSMC Podcast Network. A lot of great content there, so check us out. I'm your host, Lucas Moore. Thank you so much for listening. This has been the GSMC Soccer Podcast.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.